guys, welcome to the Fishbowl. Well, there's an Uber for everything these days. It seems like there's a Uber for dating, Uber for transport, Uber for food. But today we're with a software company based in Newcastle who are essentially using UberX technology for public transport. So we're here with Kev, one of the founders of Liftango. Kev, welcome to the Fishbowl.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, great to be here.
Awesome, mate. Well, it's such an interesting concept and business you've built. Would you walk us through a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, you described it pretty well. You're using UberX technologies for different applications of transportation. So Uber brought in great technology into the taxi industry. And now people are used to having, I guess, that type of technology available for other modes. So buses, shuttles, even getting down to the scooters. So we provide that technology within public transport, also within corporate transport and community transport, which is for people who are sick, elderly, and disabled people.
Okay. So you essentially work with companies, public organisations to organise and plan their transport solutions. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. You're taking what is for example, in public transport, you'd have a 40-seater bus driving around, a suburban area, winding through suburban areas, or even in a rural area. And there might be you and me on that bus, and it's a 40-seater diesel engine, right? So there's just a better way to do these things, right?
We're heavy guys. We're packed with muscle, so the diesel engine's doing a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's winding its way through because it's trying to cover as much of the area as possible, but it just makes it a really slow travel experience for passengers. So we've kind of ripped that up and have a data-driven experience. So you only get pickups and drop-offs when there's actually requests coming into the system via a mobile app, which has got a fairly similar experience to the Ubers.
Yeah, awesome. Love the concept. I'd love to talk through, the different solutions that you guys solve for, the different problems that you're essentially solving with the technology. Let's talk about, firstly, the business. What's the scale of the business at the moment? Where are you guys located? Tell us about the team and how that all operates.
Yeah, so we're up to about 20 staff now. We're sort of spread around the world. So we are predominantly based here in Newcastle, Australia, a couple hours north of Sydney. But we got operations in North America and the UK and the Nordic region. So you sort of find us in the old days we were traveling a fair bit, but you'll find us around those regions, more dedicated now.
Mate, that's fantastic. And how old's the business?
We're about 4.5 years old now. So I guess 4.5 years ago it was literally an idea on the back of a napkin. And about a year later we had our first client, which was University of Newcastle, who were very supportive and I guess beta client, so they helped us kind of test and learn and get to where we are today.
Yeah, wow. So you were working with University of Newcastle on their on campus mobility options? Yep.
Yeah, so to take a step back, we have a carpool product, and that's what we started doing 4.5 years ago with the University of Newcastle. And they still use it today. NIB Insurance, business parks, hospitals, universities around the country still use it. But I guess we evolved that, and we were lucky to get into an on-demand bus trial project in Sydney. It's pretty innovative. There was sort of 10 projects all around Sydney to work in public transport and basically test if on-demand kind of Uber technologies could be applied into public transport and would it work for starters. And so we were just right place, right time, right size to kind of, I guess, service it, deliver it, be agile, get things happening quickly, and it helped us get to where we are today.
Right, that's fantastic. And when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that it was quite a interesting time in your life when you first decided to start Liftango.
For sure, yeah.
Your wife was 6 months pregnant, is that right?
She was, yeah. So at the very beginning, we entered into a startup accelerator program in Sydney. It's called Slingshot. It was backed by the NRMA, and you had to quit your job to be accepted as part of the program. So we'd got in, and the final part was, I guess, to quit our jobs. So I managed to negotiate that with my wife at the time.
You're a brave man.
She's awesome, super supportive. But I guess, you look back and you go, if I knew what I was going to be in for with kids, I maybe would have done something totally different. But, it's all worked out, luckily. So, good move. Very good move in the end.
Absolutely. You guys have had a lot of success today with some massive clients. Woolworths being one of them. You've also got clients in, different parts of the world.
Yeah. I think in Australia we've got some big clients. There's Qantas, Woolworths, NIB Insurance, Macquarie Business Park, those, and universities. Overseas, we work closely with the Vancouver Transit Authority in Canada. In Seattle, we work in it's a very cool project called Blue Origin. So it's Jeff Bezos's, competing company to take on SpaceX, Elon Musk SpaceX. So when billionaires kind of have too much money, this is what they do. They try and go to space.
Just a side project.
Yeah, exactly.
Shoot over demands for
throw a couple bill at that. But it's super exciting. Like we're all pretty excited to kind of be working on that and somehow contribute to getting men onto Mars or whatever it is.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's fantastic that a Newcastle business starting in Newcastle has achieved such heights.
Yeah, and look, we're also in the UK and the Nordics. That was that happened the start of this year. So they weren't planning to go there. We had opportunities kind of come our way. Right. So that kind of changed things. Not something you turn down every day. Is long-term projects and in a foreign country and a big market. So when COVID hit, it's all been a little bit interesting for us. But it looks like it's kind of all past now, and we're getting back to normal. Normality. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, which is good.
So walk me through, what was the process of discovering the need for technology like this?
I guess, look, technology brings a lot of optimization and efficiencies. And I think when you look at transportation, there hasn't been a lot of change in our systems going, after World War II, for example. Public transport, still 40-seaters, very little technology. I guess designs of the, transport planners are still working off of plans from 5, 6, 10 years ago in some cases. And there's been new infrastructure built, new motorways, all these efficiencies building around it, but nothing really changes with the times. So when Uber came along, they obviously took on, or they used technology to kind of take on the taxi industry and improve it a lot for the benefit of passengers and users and cities to a degree. They have caused a little bit of congestion there, which is controversial. But that's I think
where you guys come in, right?
Exactly, because there's a balance, right? There's efficiency versus the general good. So, and I think that's what we do offer. We offer, we're working with these transit authorities and transit agencies to give them similar technologies and experiences for their passengers, but without, I guess, the disruption and the upheaval and the that Uber came in and kind of caused. Some might say it was for the best, but it still caused a bit of disruptions. So that's really what's, it's driven via that change in our society that technology can have big impacts in transport, and we're just starting to see that kind of really catch on probably last couple of years. Yeah,
it's interesting how when you look at really successful companies, they've gone into a space where there hasn't been any innovation in a long time. When you look at Koala Mattress, they've revolutionized the mattress industry. SpaceX, space travel, PayPal, finance. It's and you guys are doing the same in the transport industry.
Yeah, that's really it. It's a nice place to come into because there's very little innovation for many years. So even a little bit of innovation is great, a bit of progress. But I think we're starting to see a change. I think they've realized that if it doesn't come, they'll be redundant in a few years' time. They'll be the next Codex. So it's good. It's a changing environment. It was proven a couple of years ago with Uber, and it's getting an acceleration now.
Yeah. What's the vision for, I guess, transport within 10 years' time for Liftango? What's the position you guys take on it? Obviously, it's going to have a massive impact on the environmental factors in terms of pollution and being more efficient as cities, as people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the people much smarter than me have kind of defined what the future should be. If we get there or not is probably down to policymakers and technology people like ourselves. But it's referred to as CASE, so connected, autonomous. Eventually, I think that's a long delay on that. Shared and electric. So I guess the next horizon for us would be working with electric vehicles in a on-demand fashion. There's a lot of complexities and learnings in that. So electric vehicle batteries actually decline or reduce a lot quicker when they're going uphill, for example.
Wow.
And then
So you've got to account for that in the technology.
Yeah, you got to cater for when they need to go get recharged and what routes have caused them to have to get recharged. So there's some really cool, complex problems in that, but it's good. I guess the feeling from policymakers is that look, if they could overnight introduce electric vehicles completely, 100%, they would. They need infrastructure first, so there'll be a bit of a lag before we can get there. But the driver's there. Shared is something you can do now. You can provide technology to improve convenience and boost patronage. And right now with the sort of off the back of the main COVID, I guess, experience that everyone's had, you got to learn to be more safe and controlled in some of these services. So technology is probably the fastest way to give some comfort to the passengers again.
Absolutely. Mate, fantastic story, fantastic team, space. We're in a really cool office space at the moment. If you're watching the podcast, you can see, cool ping pong table behind us. It's got that typical like Silicon Valley startup tech vibe. Yeah, it's really awesome.
It's a good office to kind of give that, give the vibe that we want to give across. But yeah, it's a ping pong table that gets a lot of use from the staff members when we're not working from home. But yeah, we're getting back to the office now, so a few more rounds of being played.
Yeah, I love that. I love that focus on the culture aspect as well. Why do you think that's so important in building that team culture?
Yeah, look, it can't be underestimated. I think. I think defining the culture at the top and the goals that you want to get that everyone aligned to is key. So we've got a heavy sustainability goal and purpose with what we do around optimizing transport, increasing shared mobility, but also making it more equitable for people on the fringes of society to access transportation. So in a lot of cases, it's very backwards and difficult for these types of people. So there's technology can have a big impact there. And yeah, we have that at our kind of core at the top, and that's kind of driven down through the teams. And we've had the engineers, I guess, testing the UX and the design of new features on people with disabilities, impaired sights, and things like that. So it's something we're seeing is kind of ingrained, which is great to see. But with COVID and working from home, that's probably the biggest risk to us, is that culture that we've built is kind of degraded a little bit by work from home. So we're just coming up with ideas on how we can have the flexibility of, I guess, more of a work from home culture, but also keep the connected side between staff members and things. So got a few ideas there, which we're excited to see how they play out.
So you've obviously scaled a very successful scale-up business to date. What would be your tips for people at home? They might be working a full-time job like you were at the time. They've got a really great idea. How do they go from concept to really getting off the ground and getting the ball rolling? What would be your advice?
Yeah, look, it's a little, firstly, there's lots of advice I'd give, but trying to summarize it's probably tricky. It's in the early days, it's not necessarily about the idea. You can have a great idea, but you need to do everything beyond that. Are you innovating in a problem that doesn't really need to be solved? I guess a good example is like getting around a supermarket, for example. Do you need geolocation within a supermarket? Probably not. People are quite comfortable just walking around. So is that the type of thing you're trying to build? Innovation for innovation's sake? Or is an actual genuine problem that is large enough that people are going to pay for it, for starters, but it's actually going to move the dial and provide some value to society? There's a really cool book to read called The Lean Startup. I've recommended that to a couple of kind of other startups recently you're in the early stages, and there's the lean canvas, which kind of helps you, I guess, have this breakdown of an idea, because some of these ideas can just be ginormous, right? And almost like paralyzing because they're such a big challenge to kind of tackle. That's kind of like I guess a structure to break it down and tackle little bite-sized things and the most important things first. And I think, that's something you need to do to get your head around where's the valuable areas for starters, but where's the ones you're not spending hundreds of dollars in marketing as well to get, a lesser return on revenue and those types of things. So while you might have a great idea, you probably got to dive into the testing and learning. And then once you sort of analyze, and part of that is actually testing it with independent, non-biased users or potential users. So
Right.
If you're my buddy, for example, you're going to just say, yeah, that's
Great
a
idea.
great idea. Yeah.
Have a couple of beers, mate. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
Best
your
thing I've
mum's
ever
never
heard.
going to put you down, right? So, you need to somehow start getting lots and lots of advice outside of that.
Of course. Yep.
And even advice from entrepreneurs. So you can't have too much advice in the early days. And even if the advice is to don't proceed with your idea, at least you've probably saved a couple of years of, wasted effort. So it's definitely something you need to look at. Lots of advice, lean startup. That's probably the way to go.
And make sure there's a need for the thing in the first place.
Work that out. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or pivot.
Absolutely. Well, Kev, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, mate. It's been fantastic having you. I reckon we
Thanks,
rip
mate.
a round of ping pong and see who the ping pong master
Let's
is.
do it. Yeah, I think I got you.
I bet you probably do. Awesome, mate. Cheers.